Hi everyone, this is Divine. I just wanted to touch base again on my case after everything that happened, and it's still happening. I'm still having issues. I filed complaints with the FBI. I filed an FBI report since this judge is committing a federal crime where the FBI could investigate. I also filed a complaint with the DOJ where the DOJ could also investigate as my civil rights are being violated and my constitutional rights are also being violated due to stupidity, basically. Besides that, I wanted to touch base a little bit on the emotional um abuse. uh, I don't want to say abuse because but it is, but it's like such a frowned upon terminology. Nobody likes to hear abuse, but yet we're all being abused, right? By the system, by something, or someone, sadly. This world is far from perfect. And I'm not saying we should seek perfection. There is no such thing as perfection. But I'm an older person, so comparing to, for example, the 90s, um, it's a huge downgrade. Um, Ask anyone, you know, Gen X, late millennials, I'm a late millennial. We're very close to Gen X, even though we're late millennials. It's night and day comparison. It doesn't compare. We were raised a little bit tougher. So again, the word is frowned upon, but we had a system that functioned better. Like there was accountability that we could count on. And that's why we didn't do the stupid things that people are doing today. Because we knew that if you fucked around, you would find out. And if you start taking away the part where you find out, people are just gonna fuck around all the time. And again, back to accountability is very important to maintain a society. And if you're gonna, I'm all down for anarchy, but it's like one or the other. Anarchy is not pure chaos at first. It will look that way, but eventually society settles itself. And there will be violence, but it would end real quick. Um, but isn't that what we have right now? All this chaos, all these rioting, all these police officers being assaulted by people who don't want to have police officers, so they want anarchy. But at the end of the day, they're going to be the first ones to go down because in true anarchy, things get real fast, but everything moves quickly. So I'm not saying no to anarchy. I'm just saying we did have systems that worked in the past, and there was no anarchy. There was no need for it because we were able to maintain the system, to live in peace within the system. There was less accusations of abuse, less accusations of racism, bias, etc. Because we were a less divided people. So my opinion is that this division's being caused on purpose in order to divide people, to cause chaos. Then again, I'm not a believer that anarchy necessarily leads to chaos, but it does lead to a different way of life. So you pick and choose your poison. I have lived in society where if there is accountability where it's not tyrannical, right? There's a difference between having accountability, and I think that's where we're losing a lot of understanding. Having accountability is not the same as tyranny. So, for example, my example in Florida, if you want to watch my previous videos on the full details, my example is Florida is that the judge is not being held accountable. The laws are not being applied correctly the way they're written. He's just making things up at his as he feels like it because he feels like he has the power as a judge. He can just make things up. And that's not or holding people accountable correctly. And that's not accountability. That's tyranny. Okay, there's a difference. And we need to wake up to the difference because there's a huge difference between having a workforce that is freedom oriented, that you have a set of laws, make them smaller. I think we have too many laws, but the little laws we keep, we should keep them at all costs. So, I mean, as long as you're proving guilty without a question of doubt, obviously. And then there's that proving guilty without any doubt. Some people are being accused of a lot of things. For me, example, I'm one of those people. There's no proof. The burden of proof was not satisfied. And that was part of my motion recently. And they took my kids away based on someone pointing fingers at me with no proof in a courtroom with the judge's ruling. And the judge said specifically, oh, I don't need proof, I believe her. So when you have judges that rule this way without asking for proof, without satisfying the burden of proof, you end up with tyranny and communism. And that's what's happening in my case down in Florida. And mind you, I don't even live in Florida, and I haven't lived in Florida for over 6 years now. And this thing is still following me because that's how bad things are in Florida. And this is down south where a bunch of Cubans and Cuban descendants are involved. So I wanted to touch also on the effect this kind of tyrannical and communist system has on us. So when you live with that, it affects you. It affects how you see the world, how you see society, how you see your future, how you react to the world. A lot of people have been persecuted by the legal system, like me, like others. Others have been killed by it, you know. And imagine the effect on the families. It's my personal case is having an effect on me and my family. And it hasn't caused any death yet, thank God. But certain people have died in their own cases. And it has a huge emotional burden, not only on the people going through it, but also their families. And no one talks about it enough. It's not brought up enough because it takes a toll on the person. And then we talk about, oh, people are not producing as much as they should, people's production has fallen. True. But the system has also fallen. We have the legal system persecuting the innocent, persecuting the working class that's innocent, that simply works, while contributing and giving favoritism to the criminals, to the liars, to the manipulators, to the people who oppress the law abiding citizens. So now we have a system that is biased, basically, against law abiding citizens. Regardless if you're a man or woman, if you're a good mom, they're gonna call you you're a bad mom and the abusive father. That's the good guy. And I'll say there were protection orders. Oh yeah, the protection order expired though. Yeah, it expired because you didn't give my state the jurisdiction over my children. It expired because of you. And the judge says, oh, it expired, doesn't exist anymore. That means he's a great father. So I can't make it up. I sadly have it all emotions and transcripts and writings. So it's what it is. Imagine someone with a history of abuse, but because the judge in charge refused to give jurisdiction to another state, and because of his refusal to give jurisdiction to another state, those protection orders expire, And then he says it expired. So he's not guilty. And clearly, when something expires, it says this is no longer valid due to being expired. It's a legal document. If it expired because it was due to not enough evidence, it would say not enough evidence found, which is not my case. My case simply says the current judge, which still the crappy current judge, did not give jurisdiction to my case. And therefore, there was a confliction between jurisdictions. And the reason is written in English, like plain English for anyone to understand. So clearly, it wasn't because he's a good father that the protection order expired. The protection order expired, and he clearly states there, due to the judge not giving them the jurisdiction. And then the judge said they didn't want the jurisdiction. They denied having jurisdiction, so they gave it away. And I say he's a good father. And it's all bullshit. And anybody with any ability to think at all can see that. And then we go back to the burden being on us, the working class, the people who are good, law abiding. And then you have all these criminals running around getting favor from our systems. And then these systems, this where our economy, our country relies on, is asking us to be more productive while they're supporting the criminals. And it's not gonna work. The reason why it worked before is because we had the systems working for the working class, the law-abiding citizens who are the working class. And we worked hand in hand together. We aided law enforcement to catch the criminals. And in return, law enforcement aided us to have safety, to maintain a good law-abiding, citizen life and a good freedom life. Now we have the system turned on us, but favoring criminals. So, and abusers and all kinds of people who should be either locked up or not having access to children. But instead, they're the ones out there with freedom and with access to children that they shouldn't have. So there is an emotional turmoil in the population of the working class for the law-abiding citizen. And on top of that, you have the certain liberal states where they want to take away the guns of the law-abiding citizens, while the criminals will always have access to guns because they don't follow the law. So they can go into the black market, they can go with drug dealers and get guns whenever they feel like, because laws don't apply to criminals. They never have. That's why we have law enforcement. Now we have law enforcement in certain states, in certain cities, that is working against the law-abiding citizens. It's working against the working class. So it creates emotional turmoil in our population. It creates a society that's no longer functional. And you cannot ask the population to go back to functioning normally again if we don't have systems that are supporting us, not supporting our freedoms, not supporting what we need to go back and be emotionally available, have all this energy to be productive and produce back into the economy when we have all these systems within our society falling apart and working directly against us. And I want to talk about also the people who are targeted specifically. There is the societal influence, and then there's the people who are targeted specifically. People like me, people like others. And I'm glad there's more awareness now, and I've been eating this on the background, like all of us have, because we wanted awareness, because we couldn't talk to anyone. Because when they target you, they already spread rumors to your families, to your friends. They already have everyone convinced that you're crazy. So the moment you open your mouth, they already have this predisposition to already say you're crazy and think you're crazy. So anything you say, that it's gonna affirm that because it's already in their heads. That's how triangulation, manipulation, narcissism, the whole gang stalking operation works. And so you end up being alone and having to do everything alone and having to get yourself out of the situation alone. And it's a bunch of fly monkeys from a group of a handful to a group of hundreds against one person. And a lot of these gang stalking operations happens because they want to pressure people into either killing themselves or putting themselves in a situation where they get killed. Like I said, I had forced accidents on me where I ended up as a sandwich between accidents. There were other accidents where there was this freak accidents where my windshield broke and everything. Thankfully, I wasn't hurt. There were other instances where people came at me, like personally. And you know you're a target. You will know if you're being targeted because you will be the target and they'll come for you. And you have that energy of them coming for you and they will come for you. The accidents, cause confrontations out of nowhere. That's how you know because there's natural confrontations, there's weird accidents here and there, but when it's constantly, you know you're being targeted. Um, And when you do this whole operation alone, you have to survive a lot alone. And now we have networks, awareness, we have each other, we tell each other stories, so it's all in the open, you know. And people don't realize at first, like now we can all talk about it and laugh about it, you know. At the moment you're going through it, the emotional trauma. Abuse was not the right word. It's trauma. That's the right word. The emotional trauma that causes you, it's forever scar. It's not a scratch. It's an eternal scar. That's how deep the emotional trauma goes. And I wanted to talk about that because although there were operations, there were things to watch for, there were all these things going on in order for you to truly survive without being damaged in the process, you really, besides focusing on the external and your safety, etc., you have to focus on your emotional well-being. And nobody teaches this. Psychology doesn't even touch it. So I'm super against psychologists because they don't know what they're doing. Anyone who says go to a psychologist and they'll help you, they're trying to brainwash you. Psychologists are highly used to brainwash people. Psychology of today's most psychologists use incomplete methods. Methods that involve how you think, but not the source of why you think the way you think or your emotional attachment to certain memories and situations is incomplete. So it's my belief, and many other people's were targeted or had some sort of similar situations beliefs, that you are your best psychologist and you should take time for yourself to diagnose yourself and find out what it is that you need emotionally, psychologically, mentally, etc., spiritually, and work on yourself. Take time aside as if you're going to a specialist, but you're your own specialist. And many of us learn to be our own specialists because, how do I explain? I previously explained in one of my videos about how to identify if you're being targeted. From that explanation, I only gave like the car accident But it involves everything, not just car accidents. They're on purpose. For example, they know they're toying with you with your mind. That is the purpose of targeting you and getting stuck in you. They know you probably will look for a specialist. When you will look for a specialist, at first, that specialist is going to be normal, like everything is. Eventually, because they're spying on you already, they'll know who the specialist is. They'll know their names, the phone number, the office, everything. The specialist is going to be contacted. And then they'll have instructions. And the instructions aren't good. It's to mess with you. So the best way is always to be your best specialist. You are your best specialist. But take time aside religiously to work on yourself, not just mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Those are the four main for your well being. When you're going through something like this, you need to pay attention to your health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So whether you are a church person, don't go to the priest, but pray. If you are a meditation person, like I am, I can just meditate. And I indulged more meditation. If you are whatever it is that you do, don't go to people, but do the internal practices. This is what counts. At the end of the day, priests will talk, counselors will talk, but at the end of the day, you're inside yourself. And you're your best advisor. If you learn to work with yourself, with all parts of yourself, though, you need the spiritual balance, you need connection to God, universe, whatever you want to call it. You need to know your state of existence. Like, am I being too emotional? Am I being too reactive? Am I thinking too much? Am I not thinking enough? Am I lazy right now? Like, you have to have awareness to know what you need. And in order to have awareness, you have to be able to internalize everything. And I guess that's what they don't want because they wanted a world relying on third parties. Oh, rely on a psychologist or rely on a spiritual leader or rely on teachers for you to learn something. No, I can learn stuff on my own. I can be self-taught literally about everything because I operate that way. Not everybody does it. I have understanding of that now. But many people do more than they think. And that causes a problem to them because then they lose control. Because if you're constantly being operated by a third person, somebody they sent you, they can always control you. When you're operating from your own place of truth, your own understanding of yourself and everything that is you, and you start guiding yourself, your life, then they don't have control over it. They can't predict what you're gonna like, how you're gonna be like, so they can't make products. It's all about money at the end of the day. Not just money though, but but money is involved. The biggest thing is always control. Because remember, these leaders who shouldn't be leaders are a bunch of psychotic narcissists who should never be in that position. That's why society is falling apart because we don't have a mutual understanding like we used to before. There used to be a coherence between leadership and the population. There used to be understanding. There used to be a common ground. And we've lost that for a reason because they try to control, which is communism. Trying to control, what kind of schools your children are going to attend. It's communism, which is what the judge is doing. He's trying to dictate what religion my children is going to have, which is, I guess, my First Amendment. This judge is trying to dictate what school my children are going to go to. And my ex-husband is he got bought out by this corrupt group, handful of people that for whatever reason, I don't know why, are trying to use my children to be a certain way. And it's sad because they're just angry at me that I am me. It's so weird. And I really hope the FBI steps in and help me because my children need help. Um, since they have little egos, the psychopaths, they will cling on to children. If there are children involved or there are children near you, your niece, your anybody, any children, they will do that. So be careful and try to protect your children and any children around you. Sadly, they do go that low as they're low level scumbags, you know? So going back to feeling, right? You have to feel while you're in the process. You can't, and that is my personal experience. I'm not here to tell you what you can and cannot do. I'm sorry. I'm just from my personal point of view. When I was at it, that's what I told myself. And I'm just sharing in case it helps you, in case you're still in that situation. You have to heal while you're in, well, while it's happening. Meaning the fastest, the faster you heal, the faster you can um digest information, right? Because you have to think constantly. You have to be one step ahead. So your mind is like constantly moving, constantly working, because you have to constantly be thinking about the outcome and how they're gonna come at you, etc. Um, while it wasn't the aggressive mode, it didn't last the whole time, but it lasted quite a few years. So I don't know what kind of situation you're in. If some other people that were in the same situation that were years, some others were only a few months. So, if it's a very long term situation, the fastest you heal, the fastest you can get over it. So you can continue critical thinking. Critical thinking is extremely important. That's why I say always learn. IT was sadly a lot of times is tied to politics. Even if you're not a political figure, they project a lot onto you. So if they're very political, they're going to project that you're very political. And I had to start being political because they're projecting politics onto me. And I was like, I'm not even political. I wasn't even into politics. I was into politics in the sense of being economically updated because it was part of my job, but not politically choosing sides per se. I was like, yeah, vote. This one looks good. You know, it wasn't like I didn't know every policy at the time. This is over 12 years ago or something. Because I wasn't that involved in politics. I had certain things I got involved on, certain causes, but I didn't realize at the time how everything ties politically, including religion, by the way. Now I know. I learned. That's why I say the more you learn, the better you can understand your situation so you can get out of the situation. Like I said, it's calmer now, it's much better now. I even got some support from the flying monkeys. You know, thankfully, what started was something that was hugely supported. Once they started seeing the truth and hearing the truth, they realized they got duped by a bunch of liars, you know? And that's usually the case because if someone's telling the truth, they don't need to gang up a bunch of people to go against one target individual. They don't have to get 50, hundreds people to gang up against one person. If your cause is righteous and truthful, it will sell itself. You don't need a narcissist to be gaslighting you all the time. You need to support this, kind of crazy stuff. But people got gaslit and they got fearful and started supporting him because of fear and because they're being gaslit. And, at the moment the truth comes out, everyone's like, yes, finally I can back away. You have to understand that many of these people, which we call flying monkeys slash patty as gang stalkers, they feel obligated to do it. And they're not. But again, these gaslit, they fall for it, for the stupid narratives. That's why I call them stupid all the time, because they really are. You can just say no, like we're a pair of balls, but hey, people. But you have to help them realize what they're doing is not only unlawful, it's illegal. And eventually it's going to get up to them because at the end of the day, we do have a society that wants to go back to being functioning. And therefore, it's going to require law enforcement to interfere and hold people accountable for doing these kinds of things. It's illegal, it's unlawful, it's criminal. And the moment they realize somebody's going to come and someone is always investigating, whether they can do something about it today or tomorrow, that's different. It's between today and tomorrow. But it's coming. It always comes. Because thankfully, we're in a country that likes to preserve what we built. Because what we built is great. The reason why we have so many countries against this one nation is because it's a great nation. Okay? So we have to preserve what we've built. That is fantastic. And one of the things, it used to be the law system, the Department of Justice, along with the law enforcement, which is what's crumbling the most right now. So we need to work on these judges, and we need the FBI to step up their game, because a lot of the local municipalities, like that local municipality in Florida, is corrupt. There'll be 5 people, but people are so stupid in those communities, they don't step up. And so we need the FBI to step in. And from this video, the purpose was the emotional well-being. I guess I'm gonna be transitioning to the healing part, right? As we start getting accountability and getting the FBI involved and getting these people's gang stalking operation broken down, we need to bring about healing to the individuals. And many of the gang stalkers, at least in my case, I know, they feel emotionally abused because they were gaslit into doing stuff they should have done. It wasn't equal at the end of the day, criminal. And these were good people who did bad things. And they were bullied into doing bad things because they were weak. And they don't like it when I said that, but I think now they understand they were weak at the end of the day. It's a weak character. You do have the ability to say no, put your foot down. You just got to be strong. And if somebody comes at you, you have to be ready to come back at them right back. That's why I recommend you train martial arts and gun. You have to train, go to the shooting range, and find something that you like. Boxing's fun for girls, kickboxing too, and it keeps you in shape. If you're a man, many of the males around me like jiu-jitsu and stuff, or MMA. So whatever, whatever kind of martial arts you're into, that's fun. I recommend because it builds that. Not that you're gonna be picking fights with anybody. It's for self-defense. But if somebody comes at you, you have to be able to come right back at them. Maybe you get knocked down, but you don't go down without a fight, right? And that's how this nation was built, with fighters, people willing to fight for their freedom. And if we lose the fight in us, then we lose the nation. It is from our founding fathers. Even though I'm originally not born here, it is my home. It is where my children were born. And I love the freedom that this country provides us. And I am willing to fight for it, for my own freedom personally and this nation's freedom. And you can't do that if you're not willing to fight. It just goes hand in hand. So our rights are being violated. We have to fight back. We have these handful of bullies, of narcissists with little egos. Whose little egos got hurt and they decide to cry wolf to everybody and bully everybody. Oh, you must do something illegal for me because my ego is hurt. You have to tell them, go fuck off. Fuck yourself. Grow hairballs and go deal with your own problems instead of bullying a whole community or society to do your illegal bidding because you have a little ego that got hurt. And so you gotta build that back again into our society. People who are willing to speak up and stand up for wrongdoings. And there are lines like physical abuse is not acceptable. Bruising women and children and girls is not acceptable. Fathers who can't control their hands shouldn't have access to children. It used to be common sense. And then it became crazy. False accusations from certain women about rape without a rape kit being present shouldn't be accepted. You know, there are a lot of things wrong. It's not just against men. It's just everything. It's the whole system. So we need to, in my opinion, shorten the laws, but the laws we keep, make sure they're straightforward, they're evidence-based, and we don't accept these kinds of judges who just makes things up because they're a judge and I'm the one ruling and I can rule however I want it. And when I say evidence is not necessary, it isn't. He cannot be that way. He cannot be that way. That's not a comprehensive or coherent legal procedures or system. So in my other videos, I guess I'll dive in a little bit more on the emotional, spiritual, physical, mental well-being. I just want to touch base in case you are still in a position like that you are paying attention to yourself and to your own well-being, because it's important that you keep yourself going and maintaining yourself, because most of the time, like I said, the targeting starts because someone has a little ego, got butt hurt about something. They either couldn't have you or whatever the story is, or you have something they can't buy, whether it be your personality, your blow, whatever. God knows why people hate so much and are so jealous, but they will be so jealous of you, so hateful of you, that they will target you and create all these flying monkeys, which becomes again stalkers. And usually that leads a lot of people to commit suicide. And that's another thing, it's not a crime. And it should be punished as murder because there is intent. The intent is to try to force someone to end their lives. And that is evil. And we don't have enough laws surrounding this. So we have to create more awareness to create some sort of laws to protect target individuals and to hold the criminals accountable. And while I understand many of the gang stalkers slash fly monkeys were bullied into this position, the target at the end of the day got targeted by everybody. So they're the biggest victims. I'm not trying to victimize anybody, but those are facts. And like I said, you have to get yourself out of the situation. You have to work on yourself. And once you're out of the situation, you can do what we've been doing. There are other people creating awareness. They do marches, some of them. I'm just doing the videos for right now and trying to help individuals who find this. And I hope this helps you in any way. In my next videos, I'll go more in depth into the healing part. Hopefully, society's ready for healing and accountability, because that would be important. If you wanna go back to a functioning society, right? I hope this out. This video helped. I hope you're doing well. If you like my video, subscribe with the YouTube thing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in.